Welcome to Talk Data to Me with myself, Craig Stewart from Dalebrook Media. Great to be back. I haven't done one of these in a while. I've been away and sort of ill as well, but so good to be back recording these episodes. And joining me today is Kelly Hoffman, who is a serial entrepreneur, CEO and founder of Asset Ninja and Vocalized.ai. Kelly, how are you doing? So good to have you on the show.
I'm very good. Thanks, Craig. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. So as I alluded to there in the intro, serial entrepreneur, started quite a few businesses now. One of the first ones being from your third bedroom. I'm sitting in our fourth bedroom at the moment, which I think most people do. So it's kind of one of those great stories. Maybe just give us a little bit of an intro to yourself and how you've sort of, I guess, become this tech entrepreneur, especially now in the AI space.
Okay. It kind of happened by accident, really. As you alluded to, I started my first business out of my third bedroom. I don't want to say much has changed now. I did grow into offices, but I've kind of decided to work from home now. Yeah. But yeah, started that business out of my third bedroom. Flourished, did really, really well, grew far too quickly, and I learned a lot of lessons. Truth be told, I actually burnt out 18 months later, trying to be everything to the business. But at that stage, I didn't know better. And I had to take a little bit of time off. And through that, my sister actually worked for an international software company, and I just spoke to them one day and I said, why are you guys not in South Africa or Africa? And you know, every ex-South African has their perspective as to why they're not here. So a couple of days later, I sent her an email why she should be here. And the next thing I knew, I was meeting with some senior management, and they'd actually at the time asked me, why don't you have LinkedIn? And I didn't have LinkedIn then. I said, well, I'm not looking for a job. They said, but this is an interview. And I'm like, I was not really aware of that, but let's have a conversation. And that conversation ended up in me opening up the African operations. So it was a very interesting journey, because I, truth be told, knew nothing about software, knew nothing about their domain. But being an entrepreneur and being hungry to, having hunger to succeed, it's part of my DNA. So I started working with that company. Admittedly didn't know, as I said, what I was doing half the time in the beginning, but I wanted to learn and I actually loved it. It was such a great company to work for. I had the privilege of traveling and building my network, and I got my exposure to software. That software was more rental management software, so dealing with rental assets, but the fundamental of solving people's problems and offering value. 2 years later, or 2.5 years later, we hit lockdown, and I was like, how on earth am I going to engage with my team, keep morale up, and most importantly, deliver an experience to our customers that is authentic and not try and push for sales? So I decided to take the stance, let's take a pause on sales completely, and let's build relationships, let's build trust. Further to that, one of my colleagues, phenomenal technical guy, great person, can build rapport, really, really likable guy. And I don't mean this in an offensive way, Tim, but he would have the same client list as me. In fact, he had 17 years experience in the industry. But what was the fundamental DNA that was separating, where I could close that deal and he would just take a little bit longer? You know, he was great in what he did, don't get me wrong, but it was just like, what is that fundamental difference there? And this started my whole journey on understanding, how do people communicate? What words do people respond to? And found NLP, natural language processing, and then that I was like, wow, this is very interesting. So I probably spent about 6-7 months just doing pure research, understanding the domain, purely from a fascination perspective, and it became just something I felt this overwhelming sense that this is something I need to do. And not being someone who's built software before, but having a software exposure, but understanding how devs work, making sure that I understand a bit of the technical side, I thought, you know what, why not? And people say, but you're not a dev, how do you do this? And I was like, well, have you renovated or built a house before? Yes. Are you a builder? No. So it's a matter of just bringing those resources together. But that's really how Vocalized was born.
All right, perfect. So I think that's a really good sort of description of the journey of the entrepreneur, especially just kind of going back to the burnout phase as well. I think a lot of people tend to take it on and try to do all the roles within their organization. And I kind of, having started this business as well, have had the tendency to take quite a lot on. And always when you read something about entrepreneurs, all these quotes and stuff, it's all about the grind. And if you're not working from 4 a.m. to midnight, what are you actually doing? Are you a real entrepreneur? And I think a lot of people kind of get sucked into that Instagram sort of life of, well, I have to, because I got to work 24 hours a day because I'm an entrepreneur. And I think that's what happens. A lot of people end up kind of getting burnt out and maybe not even being able to take a step back and see where their businesses are and what it is that they need to do. So I kind of prescribe to still the work-life balance, even when you're still building a business, and you don't have to be this sort of 4 a.m. club and I meditate for an hour and then I do this for an hour and I read 15 books a week and all these sorts of things. I think a lot of that's just, Instagram worthy at the end of the day. But yes, you seem to have pushed through though. And I think it's the dedication and clearly your hunger for it that seems to have won out at the end of the day.
You described it so well, but the reality, if I may say, like at the moment, I have been burning the midnight oil because sometimes that's what it requires. But I have to force myself to say this is balance. Family is a priority. My health and my sanity is also a priority, and just kind of get balance. And I think looking back, my biggest thing with my first business was the ability to hand over and trust, because you're such a perfectionist. You really want to do well, and then you've grown up in South Africa, so you have this mindset, the longer I work, the more I stay at the office, the harder I work. And then it's not aligned with real productivity. And you do burn out, exactly that. And I think today, at the moment, the business is requiring a little bit more steam. Unfortunately, I've started to build a really good team and support network, and I have great mentors, etc., which is something I didn't have prior, but I didn't even realize those things existed, to be honest then. But starting to really balance and have focus, and also focus on what my strengths are, and that's therefore what I love doing.
And I think it's a valuable lesson and advice, I think, for people that are watching that are not entrepreneurs, they don't have their own business, but they're building a team or a department within a larger corporates as well. I think, like you said, if you're working late, you're working harder, which often is not necessarily the case. So I think all these sorts of lessons, I think it's just people who are ambitious and are building things that take some time out as well. Don't just kind of keep burning. And I think you're right as well. I find that there's times where there's a huge amount of work to be done, and then important to take a little bit of not necessarily a break. You can't always take holidays, of course, but you kind of just dial back a little bit just to kind of recharge the batteries. And I think it's a valuable lesson to anybody listening and watching, regardless of the role that you're in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Vocalized. Obviously, all around conversational AI, which is an incredibly hot topic at the moment, and it comes with a lot of benefits and a lot of challenges. Tell us a little bit about the company itself, and then we can kind of dig into the more sort of general conversation around where this is being applied and the benefits.
Gotcha. So lockdown baby, essentially, as I mentioned. But it's taken us around 2.5 years to get where we are now. And admittedly, there's a lot of failure from my end, failing fast, making decisions that might not have been the best, but you thought they were at the time. But retrospectively, it's like everything has happened as it should. The lessons, the people, the mistakes, etc. So I see it as a benefit, although I've burnt a bit of cash doing it that way, because I've been self-funding Vocalized to date, barring I have an angel investor that's come on recently. And we launched on the 11th of April, last 2 months ago now, and we have onboarding some customers and doing some really cool POCs at the moment, and various different verticals. I mean, our initial focus has been on telephony. But let's just focus on one area and do it really, really well, and then pivot into other areas. Because the reality is conversations are happening everywhere in your business. Right now, you and I are having a conversation. There's emails, there's texts, there's over the phone, internal, external, etc. So Vocalize, as it is today, is focused on the telephony side, and that is, let's say, call centers. We're not a call center product. We're a voice analytics product that happens to listen to call center conversations. And we've done it because there's a lot of learnings in that area. There's a lot of scale, there's a lot of volume. I mean, South Africa has been 2 years in a row being voted as the most favored outsourced call center location globally. And it's one of our fastest growing job categories, contributing like 53 billion rand a year to our GDP. So it's a really material space. However, it does come with this complexity. It is difficult. I think, before this seems like a great idea, and then you get into the grass of the detail, and it's actually probably the most hardest space to work in. In South Africa, we've got 11 different languages, as you know. So with that comes different vernacular, there comes switching and conversations, and it makes it a bit more complex, but it's exciting. And, with mentioning just now about us winning the most favored outsourced call center location, 40 to 50% of our agents are calling offshore markets. So I'm going to focus on those areas for now, but at the same time, still build, our models around the local languages. It is tough, but I know as a business, I've chosen to go for low-hanging fruit, but also build language models that represent, where we are and who we are.
Yeah, how are you managing that? Because I think that comes up a lot during conversational AI, speech analytics, etc. Is there 11 different official languages in South Africa? And not only that, I think it's the different ways that people from different backgrounds speak. It's the slang that they use, as you said, the vernacular, all those sorts of things. How are you managing that? Because over the years, I've heard people say, well, it's a really difficult part. It's really good in English, but when it comes to the other language, really starts to suffer. And of course, from a customer experience point of view, obviously notwithstanding phoning globally, but locally, you want to be talking to customers in their own language to make them feel the most comfortable. How have you kind of gone around that? Are there tools and products that are coming onto the market that you can use across all the languages?
Yeah, it has been a bit of a hard journey for us on that level. So we have partnered with a speech to text partner that is basically succeeding in that area, and I took a stance not to reinvent the wheel. Speech to text is not our sweet spot. What we do with that and analytics that we provide, that's where we really focus on. So also being part of Women in Voice, which I'm sure we'll chat about just now. I'm the South African ambassador, but part of an African group of women that are just doing some incredible stuff, working with Mozilla, etc., and building these language models, because we are such an underrepresented country. I mean, we're really like, oh, Africa, that place, And I think right now people are starting to see that we really are something special. But building those models are going to take time. We have built a lot of machine learning in our platform. So we're slowly trying to get better. We're not 100% there. There are other people that do it better. And it's been a challenge. I'm not going to say we're there yet. I mean, we are a startup, so I'm going to use that for now. Yeah. But I see in the next 6 to 8 months, the more data we have, the more that we're processing, the more that we're working with our partners and building those custom models, we will be better and continue to. So it's a slow journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are some of the insights you're trying to provide the customers that you're working with? What are kind of, I guess, the benefits? What are they looking to get out of the speech analytics and the insights that you can build for them?
I think, let me just chat with one for now, and we talk about sentiment. So sentiment in my world is all good and well to say Craig is feeling sad, happy, or neutral for that matter. But, and I say this with no respect, no respect, but no one really cares why. They want to know the why, actually. They want to go into the granularity, and that's really where I feel Vocalized focuses on. Why is Craig having a negative, emotion? Because it's really, what's the root cause here? And then there's an array of things that it could be. For instance, it could be Kelly speaking too fast, which I know I do. I could be interrupting you. Yeah. You could be asking me a question that I'm actually not adequately answering, or I'm asking you questions that are really not, resulting in anything positive. Alternatively, as an insurance company, for example, the new price on your premium is not ideal. So there's those really little hidden nuggets that we could start to look at and say, okay, what is really going on here? And therefore build a real true score of sentiment. But also just looking at questions. Questions are, there's so much information there, for instance, and we split them between agent questions or speaker questions being internal and then your customer. If you've got 1,000 customers asking you the same question, is there a wealth of what's going on there? Is it potentially an opportunity to have a new product feature? Do you need to relook at your FAQs and your customer journey to be better? Or how can you build a comprehensive way of answering those questions more efficiently and more effectively to, one, reduce your handling time on a call, but also just delight your customer and give them an experience that is a first call resolution. Also, we look at topics and conversations, which is essentially a table of contents of your conversation, quite material words or phrases that are being consistently spoken. I'm now speaking more of an aggregate level, but we can go right down to message level, granular, where is that happening contextually? We also use things like, in my world, I call it trackers, which is, let's call it a parent-child relationship. So you've got, and it's all fully customizable. You can have it as agent politeness, and then words and phrases that you as a company can completely define what that is. And at the same time have words that are compliance, those words and phrases where we need to track those verbatim. But at the same time, we're also tracking, is that client actually consenting to this? So you can start to see, are your staff representing, asking questions that they should be asking, doing the needs analysis accurately, what are our top 10 complaints? Where are we delighting our customers, but where are we leaving things for error essentially? And if I'm just the last one here, there's a lot of other little things and they're more features, but something that we've really built that I'm quite proud of is our Vocalize score. It's an overall health metric of your business, but it's unique to your business, and it's unique from a company level right down to an agent, to a campaign, etc. And you choose the metrics that matter most to you to build up the score. What is the target, etc. And the whole idea is eventually you don't even have a dashboard. What is my Vocalize score? And if it is below a certain number, or it is in line with something, let's click on it and go deep. Where is and what is really causing this? Instead of a retrospective view, and no disrespect to the NPS score, which is a 1 to 10 number. Where was it said? Who said it? How was it said? Etc. Whereas Vocalize score is more internal. We will build it ultimately to also represent the customer. But that's something I'm quite excited about because it's very contextual, it's very relevant, and you can go right down into detail, and it's not just this any, mini, miny, mo number. Yeah.
And how are you building the trust across the business around obviously recording the speech and coming up with the right sentiments? Because I think across the board, when you're looking at data analytics and insights, it's often the trust in the insights where, that's the bit that slows people down. They're like, well, yeah, I kind of get it, but we're going to keep going with the way that we've always done things. How are you kind of working with your customers to, I guess, engender trust in the insights that are coming from the speech analytics? You start to talk about things like AI and people are like, oh, I don't know about that. It's a little bit scary. How have you kind of gone calming the nerves and building trust with your clients, but across the board, all their sort of call center agents as well?
Yeah, to be honest, we've actually had really good feedback. And I think because our initial version 1, we focused on doing it asynchronously, which is, retrospective data post update. So we can show an immediate result. We say, Craig, give me the last 10 calls, the last 3 months of calls, let's process it, we can show. And then we can go into detail and say, this is what's happening. And then it actually tells the story. Okay, that now makes sense. But with regards to agents, initially, even myself with AI, like, what is this? Let's learn more about it, because you have this whole Arnold Schwarzenegger, Robocop idea in your head, and people, it's going to steal your job. But the way we position Vocalize, and this is actually true to our core values, and I will never compromise on this. We are not here to replace human beings. I'm not here to replace a QA's job, a quality assurance. I want to help them be more efficient and be better. And the way we've worked with our customers, it's given them that peace of mind. It showed them that, okay, fine, this is what you're doing, and you're only able as a human being to listen to 10% of your calls. Let's help you listen to the other 90% and make you more efficient. Let's be your second, the second eye or your right hand. So we've really positioned ourselves in that from that respect, and we've had great feedback. Even if I just look at, one of our first customers is somebody in the States. They're not even a call center. They do IP planning, and we're taking all their Zoom calls once they've done a discovery with a new startup or a customer, whatever that may be. And we're taking it, we're giving them a contextual summary. So basically a synopsis of that whole conversation, what it was about. We extract the topics. We show speaker separation up to 10 different people. So timestamps, who said what, when they said it. And we're providing these questions and these analytics. And it's correlating with what they're seeing and what they've been manually doing for the last 5-10 years.
Yeah.
And just so trust is something that's going to take time, but I think also the way we handle our customers when we build that initial rapport does solidify it. But we've had really good feedback. We haven't shared many negative in terms of the AI, to be honest with you.
Right, perfect. And I think that kind of talks to the growing maturity and understanding around AI, that it's not taking jobs, it's not the Robocop sort of thing, but it's much more like, I guess, around intelligent automation, the machine learning models, and just understanding data a bit more. Great to hear that you got a customer in the US. I mean, that's some pretty strong start there.
Yeah, grateful. You've got everything going, and now it's like let's onboard customers, let's scale, and let's do this. So
awesome. That's good news. All right, just so as we're closing off, Kelly, let's talk a little bit about your ambassadorship for Women in Voice. I'm not that familiar with it. I don't know how familiar the audience is with it as well. So why don't you give us a little bit of an insight into Women in Voice and the role that you play here in South Africa?
Okay. So Women in Voice is a global organization. Dr. Joan Bajorek, she's actually an advisor to Vocalize. She's the CEO and founder. She sits in Seattle, and she took a stance a couple of years ago where she's quite in demand from an employment perspective. And she's like, but why am I earning less? Why am I getting treated differently? And, I don't want to go on that whole narrative and say, I'm all for let the best person get the position. And she started to see this gap where women needed to be represented, and especially in the voice space. Even from South Africa, me trying to find somebody to join the South African, leg, I couldn't find people. I was like, where are women in this space? So we've actually started Women in Voice Africa to start, and as we grow, we'll then become more. But the whole purpose is giving previously disadvantaged, the females, etc., all over the world, just the opportunity to be in the voice space, to have exposure to understand NLP, to be part of a broader community. The network within this organization is incredible. I was invited last year to pitch to the Alexa Fund, and those are the kinds of women that are very passionate in part of this. And if I look at what we're doing in Africa, we're the ladies that we're partnering with here, building those language models, encouraging younger girls to get involved and show them that AI is not scary. It's actually something fun that you can contribute to. So it's really around giving, excuse the pun, women a voice, being part of a global community, allowing us to network, to learn from each other, to have that exposure, and to basically, have workshops and build webinars, etc., to encourage other females to get on board and see the opportunities that are within this. And just because you live in Limpopo, for argument's sake, doesn't mean you don't have exposure to international waters, and that you can dream and live beyond that border and thrive. So it's really been great from a network perspective, but the authenticity behind it and what we're really doing, we care. We want to make a difference.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. How can people get involved? Someone listening to this that wants to get involved with that, just reach out to you, or is there another way for them to get involved?
Yeah, welcome to reach out to me directly, or go to the Women in Voice website and just select the South African chapter, and we'll be in touch. And I'm happy to. I would love people to please reach out. The more the merrier. I mean, regardless if we're competitors in this space, let's build something that makes a difference.
Yeah, I think it's so important that have so many conversations around the skills gap in the technology environment. I think it's a bit broader than just saying data or AI or whatever it may be. And there seems to be a lot of initiatives in place to do this, but it always seems to it's always a conversation, the skills gap. How do we get more people into technology in general, but how do we get more young women into the STEM workplace environments? And I think a lot of it is just about promotion, it's about awareness, it's about, things like Women in Voice. So great work. And I think, please, anybody listening to this, reach out if you want to get involved with Kelly and Women in Voice. Please do so. Kelly, thank you so much for joining me. It's been great talking to you. Very fascinating to hear how you're growing things. Fantastic to speak to entrepreneurs in South Africa as well. I think we've got so much talent here. We've got so much ambition. So yeah, fantastic. All the best with everything. Thanks so much for joining me.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Craig. Have a lovely day.
No, absolutely. You too.